everybody. Welcome to the Exalted Essence panel here at Onyx Path Con 2022. It's our third virtual convention. Who knew we'd be doing these for this long? But here we are. And I am joined today by all kinds of fun people. We have Monica Speca. I pointed wrong. Wait,
Oh, hi, I'm right here.
You're there.
Right here.
Well, on my screen.
Oh, I'm.
Either way.
Hi,
Monica.
I'm here. Hello. Hi, I am one of the developers for Exalted Essence. One of the people who made the roadmap for this wonderful thing, and I'm happy to be here.
And also Pillars of Creation.
And also Pillars of Creation, which I was sort of considering part of the whole package.
Yeah, which is the Essence Companion that everybody's been seeing for a while.
Yes, it has a title and a fancy one.
We have Elliott Freeman.
Hi, I'm a writer on Exalted Essence and a little on Pillars of Creation and developer for XGens.
And Sidereals.
And Sidereal. Yeah. Avoidance.
And of course, Lauren Roy.
Hi, I'm Lauren Roy. I am a writer on Pillars of Creation as well, and I have developed some other Exalted things, such as Adversaries of the Righteous, Many-Faced Strangers, etc.
So much fun stuff. So today we're going to talk about, obviously, a little bit about Essence itself, even though I think most folks are pretty well acquainted with it at this point. And then I want to talk a little bit about Pillars of Creation. And if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat at any time, because that's kind of the main point of this conversation, is to answer questions people might have, as well as we can, because we can't always answer questions, because sometimes we don't know. I will get started with Zach, because Zach always says, "How's everyone doing today?" I'll answer first. I've still got COVID. It doesn't go away that fast, but I'm pushing through. It's the final day of the con. I've made it. And the con's been keeping me actually a little sane, because otherwise I would just be by myself for the past several days, trying not to infect my boyfriend. So this is nice. I can still talk to people. Monica, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty okay. I am not much of a morning person, so this is like the on-ramp for me being all the way awake. We're right into the time when my brain wakes up, and I'm enjoying a cup of coffee while we talk.
I have a soda and a water.
So cheers to the audience. Good morning, if it's morning in your time zone, and if not, I hope you're having a good day.
Yeah. Elliott, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I am one of those abhorrent, wretched morning people. So, my body has decided that if it's 6 a.m., it no longer wants to be asleep ever. So I'm doing good. I told them I almost forgot about the panel because I was writing Essence things, which I feel like is an acceptable-ish reason.
Yeah. I would have pinged you at like 5 till and been like, Elliott, where you at? But if you're going to be late and it's because you're working on the thing this panel is about, I'm not that upset about it. Lauren, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm caffeinating in true, New England Boston fashion. I've got my dunks, which I kind of hate calling it that, so pretend I didn't say that. But we're getting some coffee going.
I lived in Connecticut for many years, and I never got the Dunkin' thing. I don't like Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I think it's bad.
We were sort of too lazy this morning to actually brew a pot of just regular coffee, so it's like, well, I guess we're doing a coffee run.
All right, cool.
But I'm doing good. If the panel gets interrupted, you can't really see her. There's a kitten in the window, so there may be keyboard interruptions. Cat like typing.
What is the cat charm, Monica, or the cat martial art?
Yeah, the cat vanishing gesture.
Yes.
It was the charm that we had to use before recording some systematic understanding of everything, because my cats would come in and like get up on me and then participate. Mm-hmm. So we had to remove them from the recording space pretty frequently.
I suspect if I booted her from the room, she'd start clawing at the door. So this is the compromise. Let her sit in the window.
None of mine are in here right now, so we're gonna keep it that way. So Monica, first off, let's talk a little bit about the genesis of Essence for anybody that maybe isn't familiar. Although I think most of y'all probably are.
Probably.
But we can give like a condensed version.
Yeah, a condensed version of the condensed version.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, many people have wanted Exalted, but easier. So we got together a bunch of people to sort of brainstorm how to do that. And we spent a lot of time before the pitch, even like in the pitching phase, getting together these kind of core concepts. And there was a group of people who kind of hammered out all the things that we really wanted to do with Essence. And then we put all that together, and we put together a pitch, and Dixie slid it across the desk at Paradox and made unbroken eye contact for 18 months until they said yes.
It was not that long.
It was a pretty long time. They held on to that for a hot minute. I recall us all thinking like, oh, maybe they're gonna say no, but they said yes. And then we pulled together an all-star team of our existing writers to take that concept that we had brainstormed and Paradox looked at and was like, maybe. And then we spent a bunch of time putting it together. We did an alpha phase where there was a really early preliminary version of the rules, which we play tested the crap out of.
Yeah.
Decided, hammered out a whole bunch of early kinks, and then set everybody, hit the ground running, and started writing first drafts. So that was that's sort of how it came together.
Yeah, I always say, if we talk about it, that it's one of those things where I thought I had a brilliant idea, then I found out that like everybody had the same brilliant idea at some point in the past several years. And so I'm like, cool, let's just actually take the brilliant idea that we all keep having and make it a reality. So yeah. But yeah, so like it's one of those things where Exalted is great, but Exalted is occasionally hard to parse for some folks. And I understand that, because I'm not a mechanics head myself. So having a version of Exalted where the charms are a little more straightforward, where, you know, everything just makes a little more sense to me is very nice, and something that I care deeply about. And I know that the whole team was excited about it when we started talking about it. It was very much like, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could bring on this person to do this thing that they wanted to do for so long, you know? And that was exciting. And also the amount of things that I wasn't sure about, where I was like, do we need this? And, you know, Monica and Neil or Megan or whoever would be like, yes, we actually do, because the fans will want that thing. And I was like, oh, okay. I trust you, my team. So we had a very successful Kickstarter last summer, also around the time of Onyx Path Con. And now we're working on the companion book, as well as getting the core into release at some point soon. But what can you tell us a little bit about the companion book, Monica? Pillars of Creation.
Well, I did also see someone asking if we knew what was going in it, and the answer is yes. That was all in the Kickstarter.
Yeah. All the stretch goals were decided beforehand.
Yeah. So I don't know if y'all remember what was on the Kickstarter, because that was about a year ago. We've got new universal charms. We've got some new Exalt types, things we saw previewed in Exigence, which will be appearing in Pillars. I think now's a great time to reveal that the Architects and Sovereigns will be appearing as fully playable characters in Essence, with their own charm sets and everything. So we've got that coming. We have a ton of new martial arts. We have, including pretty much all the classic sidereal martial arts, a couple fan favorites, and a total facelift on the much beloved / maligned Scarlet Patterns of the Battlefield.
Right.
Which got a slightly new name. It's now Scarlet Patterns of the Battlefield, not Scarlet Pattern Battlefield. You can thank fans for that one. So we have a lot of that coming. We're going to be including, we gave you a ton of templates in the core for making NPCs. Now we're going to give you some specific NPCs and a couple new templates in the antagonist section. There's going to be a whole bunch of new artifacts. Trying to think of what else in there. We previewed all of these things, but just to refresh your hype.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool new stuff coming. Also, we have a bunch of new setting stuff, and we're going to keep doing, not new setting stuff, but like additional setting stuff. It's all things that you're all familiar with. I don't think we're doing any locations 3rd edition hasn't at least touched on. We're not making up any new places.
Right.
But we're going to keep doing the thing that we did in the Essence main book, where we continue to talk about real world inspirations for these locations, because that went over super well. So yeah, you can expect all of that, more basically just what you wanted from the core book and then some. And this also helped us get a little bit more room to breathe that we didn't have on the first pass.
Also, War Striders, right?
Yes, War Striders. You were right. Definitely.
Right as I said that in real time, someone asked about it in the chat. So, how many War Striders are there?
I cannot answer that question.
Okay, we can't.
Yeah, I am not going to answer that question because that may change a bunch of times. So I don't want to be like, there's 10, and then we discover that there isn't actually room for all 10, or something's not fitting the vibe, or we wanted to rewrite one, and then you're like, where's the 10th War Strider, Monica? So no, sorry, I'm not going to answer that question, but there will be a bunch. We're going to have a pretty broad selection. There's going to be a section in War Striders specifically about using them in your campaign. And also a little bit of how to like design them. So it's getting a whole subsection in the artifact section. It's getting a fair amount of room.
People love War Striders.
People do love War Striders. They're pretty cool.
Elliott, what have you been working on for this book? For Pillars.
For Pillars?
Yeah. Also, I know that you are working really closely with the team to make sure that the exigents get ported over properly and the optional exalt types and everything. So if you can talk a little bit about that too, if you want.
I mean, there's been some fun conversations about the Sovereigns, and I love the Sovereigns. They are my shiny little glam rock babies.
Which is why you have an Aurora on your wall.
It's why I have an Aurora on my wall. I've secretly been a Sovereign this entire time. Either that or I'm a Heart Eater. But no, for Pillars, I'm working on bringing some of our favorite demons into Essence in a more like specific way than just the templates. So, hey chat, what's your favorite third circle demon, and why is it Amalion?
And Lauren, what are you working on for it?
I am working on some locations in the north, including, speaking of the Sovereigns, Uluiru. So we'll go a little more into depth for them. And Monica, is it okay to say the other two places I did, even if they may change in development?
You can talk about it.
We'll slap a subject.
Everything is subject to change. It is in development.
We did Ascension and Meadow.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think those will be some pretty cool locations to explore. And I also worked on the storytelling chapter with some advice for long-term games and high essence games.
So the person who asked if there was going to be storytelling advice, Lauren just answered that.
Indeed.
Yes, there will be some storyteller advice. Yeah, no, it's a really packed companion book. We had a lot of fun figuring out what all would go in there. That was really the work of Monica and Neil. From the first book, kind of going like what would add on to this without being bigger than it, right? Because that's the one thing I didn't want to do, was make the companion larger than the like core book. Because if Essence is about 160-ish thousand words, I was like, I really don't want to go much over 100,000 for the companion, because it needs to be like a companion, not a tome that Because it would have been really easy to say, like, oh, every stretch goal adds this many words because we really want to put everything in Essence. But really, what Essence should be is a guide to adapting Exalted Third to those rules. So there's some specific examples and then some templates and some advice to be like, hey, like, here's, if you have the core Dragon-Blooded book, you have all the information you need to play it in Essence. And if you have the core Exigence book, you have all the information you need to play it in Essence, but we still put it in Essence in case people only pick that up. And then they can make it up themselves. Like, maybe they see the, a few paragraphs or whatever about Uluiru, and then they make the rest of it up, whereas a different table who has Exigence goes off the, canon answer. So, I think that's cool. I'm a big
I agree.
And also, if you didn't get it, you still can do it on BackerKit until literally and until it comes out. You can back Essence on BackerKit if you want the cool deluxe version. So I like the cool deluxe versions personally, and of course we had to do one because we do them for all the Exalted books. So I know that we have some stuff on some new playable Exalt types. What are the new playable types we've put in Pillars, Monica?
Architects, Sovereigns. Then we're going to give you some sample things for some of the what are they called, apocryphal Exalted.
Optional
I think,
Exalted.
the optional ones, I think it was the Umbrals. I don't remember the other two.
The Dream
Soul.
Soul
Totally
Heart
drawn.
Eaters.
Heart Eaters? Heart Eaters aren't supposed to be playable. They're supposed to be antagonists.
The Dream Soul?
Dream Soul.
Dream Soul, that's the guy. Yeah. And so there's going to be a little, I thought there was a third one. Elliot, do you remember if there was a third one?
They're Dragon Kings?
Heart Eaters and Spoken are antagonists.
Right. Heart Eaters and Spoken will appear in the antagonist section, and Umbrals and I believe Dream Soul will appear sampled as playable characters. They are not getting the comprehensive full set, but we're giving you enough to be like, this is what they could look like. And you can create more based on the tastes that we are giving you.
Yeah.
And yes, playable Dragon Kings will be available. Also, we are using the Lyntha as the example for playing non-exalted but special creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So that we're going to use them as sort of like the God-blooded example.
Right.
Which third edition uses God-blood as the catch-all term for like Fey blood, ghost blood, demon blood, anything where one of your parents was a supernatural being and one of your other parents was a human. So that will have a bunch of general rules for how to create your own guy using that thing. So everybody who wanted fair folk, everybody who wanted playable God-blooded, the answer is yes, but we're using the Lyntha as an example with some like, here's the rules for doing this on your own. And yes, of course, there will be rules for how to do that and then also make an exalt.
Yeah, exactly. Because like we really did want to give you all the options that we could with this, and I know folks were excited about some of these things. And also, we know that making a core Exalted book for third takes a while, so it's nice to be able to kind of get snippets of it out there, so you can see what the roadmap looks like, which will also give you ways to kind of, you could probably figure out if you read Essence and then also Exigence, you could probably figure out how to make like an Infernal for your game, right? Like you can figure it out kinda. And also, like, as somebody who isn't super duper mechanics brained, I find it pretty easy to write charms and artifacts and stuff for Essence. And I mean, if I mention one and throw it at Monica, she might clean it up a little bit and say like, oh, I would change this thing to this and this to this. But overall, like, even someone who doesn't really do a lot of that can do it. And I definitely encourage folks to make their own artifacts, to make their own charms, to do whatever they need to do if they want an even more bespoke experience. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a big fan of having this toolbox, and I am excited to maybe even run it someday. Dixie running a game? What? I just say Monica run games for me all the time. Yeah, so that is exciting. We did have an ongoing Essence Actual play on the Pathcast recently. Apparently people are saying Orabilis for life, and this is Ligir Erasure.
I agree, Orabilis for life. That's my favorite third circle demon too.
Close second for Malion.
What is so special about the one that you keep mentioning, Elliot?
I just think she's nifty. I'm more.
I just think they're neat. Yeah.
She's just a thick veiled lady who's just here to build your manses. That's her deal.
All right.
I just think
I'm
she's
into
neat.
Somebody did ask if there were any changes to the alchemicals after the Kickstarter. There were changes to pretty much everything after the Kickstarter. We took everybody's feedback, we looked at it, we poked things, we added some modes, we tweaked all the widgets. That is one of those things, we talked about this in at least 2 other panels, that like doing the Kickstarter manuscript and having a feedback portion on that is kind of our answer to not doing open development all the time anymore. Because open development could be a little rough to deal with, but having that month-long period, even usually a couple weeks afterwards, for people to put in feedback means that we can see what people are really confused about or what needs to change. And since Essence was kind of a test subject on some level, like it wasn't, it didn't have a good template. We were very, very excited to see what people were buttoned up against and what things were working and weren't working and be able to change them. So I do thank everybody for their feedback during that period. It was a fair amount.
Thanks everyone for participating in what was more or less our open beta.
Yeah, kind of. But as people have seen from any of the actual plays that we've done since then, or any of the other podcasts that have been done about it, it's changed a bit. But I think entirely for the better.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. And
I've also made it a point to kind of keep up on conversations that are happening, like on the forums, like in the Discord, and see what people are talking about and the troubles that people are having running their games and the things that people are reporting being confusing or broken or causing difficulty for them. And we both did we're doing we did a big cleanup after the Kickstarter. Thank you everyone for your beta participation. And then we sent that off to editing, and then in the wake after that, we were going to do some post-editing development, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to be changed then too. So it's going to be, I don't want to say it's a completely different product, but a much more polished product. The final version is going to come together really, really cleanly, and I'm very excited for everyone to see it.
Yeah, and I've been trying to edit this with an eye to a new player, because that's a big part of Essence for me, is drawing in new folks to Exalted. I love Exalted, and I feel like it has its really great fan base, but also Exalted is one of those games where we are seeing quite a few newer players. Like, there are a lot of people in the Exalted fan court and also in our channels who are, pretty young, who maybe like were babies when Exalted first came out, so they can't be the 20-year-old fans that a lot of us are. Not me, but a lot of folks are, because I'm newer to it. But that's great. That means that people are still excited by the idea. They're interested in the game, and some folks are like, "This setting sounds amazing," and then they open the charm section and they're like, "This is a lot." Which I understand, because that's kind of what happened to me the first time I looked at the book. I was like, "There's a lot happening in this book, and it looks really cool. But there's a lot happening." So yeah, having this kind of as an entry point, and then if people want to switch to third, they can, to straight third, or they can keep playing Essence and use third as essentially setting and flavor books, because there's a lot to mine from in all of those, because Eric and Vance have done an amazing job with the line, and of course Elliott is stewarding some of the books now, which is great. Elliott, you hate being perceived. I'm just perceiving you too hard right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. I like drawing in new folks to our games. With the explosion of D&D in the past few years, a lot of people are getting into role-playing games that maybe hadn't heard of them before, and that's great. And now it's like, okay, so D&D is cool. I have no problem with D&D, but also look at this. Also look at this game. It's also very cool, and you could roll way more dice. Because that is one thing that makes me sad when I go to play D&D. It's always like I'm rolling one die at a time, and I'm like, that's boring. And then I play Essence, and I'm like, I have so many dice in my hand. And that's much more fun.
The moment, and I think it was during one of the Essence plays last year.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones
where you discovered fistfuls of dice and why it was amazing.
Yeah.
Suddenly that moment that you just saw Dixie oh.
Yeah, because I was rolling 17 dice, and I was like, what is happening? This is not normal. Because I do come from a long White Wolf IP background, and so I'm used to rolling 4 to 8 dice. That's normal. And then in Exalted, it's like here's 17, and I'm like, my hands are small. This is difficult. But it's fun. It's great. It's a good feeling. And as somebody pointed out in chat, you can do cooler stuff in Exalted than D&D. You just can. I don't have a spell in D&D that turns a battlefield full of enemies into a fine red mist, but I do in Exalted. And that's great. So yeah. We also have some other stretch goals that we are in the works for Essence. I know, Lauren, are you writing something?
I am working on a novella, yes. And it involves a liminal, an alchemical, and an exigent of a god of lost things. I feel like I should follow that up with walk into a bar.
Definitely.
Tea house.
But yeah, walk into a tea house. But they are down in the south, and they are in search of not only a lost city and a lost mentor, but maybe some things that they've lost themselves and don't realize.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got novellas going from Ray Cole and James Huggins as well. We had a nice little coordination with all the fiction writers where I said I'd like to have across these three novellas all the Exalt types represented. They can be antagonists, they can be secondary characters, they don't have to be like the main characters. And I think that it all worked out. Everyone picked their Exalt types that they wanted to work with. Um, and so we're going to see them all represented in the fiction, which is very cool. Lauren also wrote the opening fiction for Exalted, which is a bit of a departure from our usual, story that spans the whole book, where I just wanted to like one sheet at the beginning that was like a series of vignettes. And I think we're doing something cool with the illustration for that, so I'm looking forward to that. And I haven't even seen it yet. It's cool. Yeah. So that's exciting. We also have some adventures we had talked about that'll be happening, little jump starty things. Those aren't as much in the works yet, but we will see them going forward as everybody saw them from the stretch goals. So, yeah. Does anybody have more questions?
I saw a good audience question. There it is. Morbed Gabe asks, what mechanic of essence is your favorite to hook charms into and have charms mess with?
I missed that one. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, no problem. I saw that come up and I was like, oh, that's a good question. When we get back around to asking questions, I'll make sure it comes up. So since I asked the question, Lauren, what's your favorite? I'll put you on the spot immediately.
Remember yesterday I said everything falls out of my head?
Yeah, I understand the
I see
feeling.
what you're doing there, Monica.
I understand the feeling of when like someone's like, hey, what's your favorite thing? And then it just flees like roaches scattering before a light being turned on. You're just like,
right. I have never known anything in my entire life.
Yeah, you're like, what's Exalted? I don't.
So I don't know if this directly answers the question, but a thing that I do love about essence charms is the modes. Mm-hmm. Because I being one of those people who've been playing for 20 years, sometimes somebody's like, oh, I want the charm that does this thing. And we're all trying to remember what book it is. I mean, now we've got the internet, we can just Google it. But when you're flipping pages, like, oh, I'm playing a Dragon Blooded and that's actually a sidereal charm. Oh, well, I guess I'm out of luck. With Essence, you are not out of luck because you can make it do the thing that you want it to. And I like how we have the charms that give you the abilities and then customize it for the type of Exalt that
I will take credit for the idea and then give all the credit for implementing it to Monica and Neil, the writers. Because I think
it's great.
That was the biggest thing I had to save space, was because we had to put 10 charm sets in one book. And so universals were a thing I really wanted to do, because I feel like, I mean, I think that, is it called Glorious Exalted Bolt or something? What's the name of that one?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called, yeah.
Well, that is the one that was always my, like, template charm, where I'm like every Exalt, for the most part, can probably fire a beam of something at a thing. Like, whether it's fire or water or solar energy or lightning or whatever. Like, Bolt of X is just kind of a basic spell in a lot of things.
And Alchemical is literally just shooting actual spare part bolts.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Glorious Exalted Bolt is just a big bolt that they just hurl at people. But yeah, so like that was the biggest thing to streamline them, because they needed to have some individual charms, because every Exalt type needs to have some charms that nobody else can have access to, but they also need to have charms that people can, use their version of, which is very cool. And I was a big fan of that. So yeah, thank you. And also thank you, Monica, for making it happen.
My pleasure. Elliott, what about you?
So I'm going to probably have to go with question asking charms, where we got to, rifle around in like the Powered by the Apocalypse toolkit a little bit and just ferret some of that into Exalted, which was great. And it's something that I think people have seen a little bit more in Exigence, and I don't know, maybe you'll see a little bit more in Sidereals. But it's great because it's a way to like give a little bit more narrative permission and structure to the players and to the storyteller. I love some of the questions that people ask with it, because it lets you dig deep into some motivations or some like scene dressing that maybe wouldn't have normally gotten addressed.
Right.
And also, so I did a lot of the Essence Sidereal stuff, and I'm running a game that has 2 Sidereals in it, and I'm just constantly being thwarted by my own creation. I'm like, stop asking questions about things. No, it's actually
you're the person who gave them a question asker as their passive. And every single one of them has at least one very prying question they can ask for free.
It is. I hope that for storytellers, they see that as an opportunity for improvisation.
Yeah.
And that deepens the world, hopefully. Because even if it's not something that's like immediately gameable, like if it's something where you can just drop in like, oh, what's this person's, deepest regret? Oh, like sometimes that can be a fun way to either humanize a character who was coming off as a little too like one note, or very occasionally you just want to turn the knife a little bit on the players. But
yeah.
What about you, Monica?
I was going to ask you.
Oh, okay.
I'm going down the row.
Well,
I'm at the end.
Okay, you've taken over the panel. That's
well, just for this question.
That's okay. You can take over the panel. I've run too many panels already.
Okay.
Yeah. So, gosh, favorite charm design. I'm a big fan of the build power that we put in Essence. I think that it's nice that you can help each other out. I think it provides a way, like you could literally play a character who's like all talk and still help in fights. And also you could play a character who's all fight and help and talk. And like those are both nice. Like I am all about working together as a team. And since Essence was specifically designed to enable mixed Exalt groups, like it doesn't have to be. I always try to stress this. You can still play an all Dragon Blooded game in Essence. You're more than welcome to. You can play an all Solar game. Like no one's stopping you. But we wanted to make sure that mixed parties worked. Since we're presenting them all in one book, it would be silly to be like, here's 10 Exalt types, pick one for your game. So I love build power as an action. I love the way that it helps out, like I said, in pretty much any situation. Because sometimes you don't have much to do, but you can help. You can help things go better. Which I think we demonstrated a lot in the game that you ran for the Pathcast.
Definitely.
Yeah, because Chaz had a very talky character. And we were all like, it's okay. We can help. Because I had a very punchy character.
Yeah, that was a fun little, I don't want to call it a one shot, but like short self-contained.
Yeah, like a 3-shot. Yeah.
3-shot, yeah. They were pretty short sessions. I suppose if we had done one really long one, it would have been a 1-shot if we were playing for like 6 hours, but we didn't have that kind of time.
No, we actually were recording those on Chaz and Monica's lunch breaks.
Yeah.
For anyone who heard this.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump off of what Lauren said about modes for my favorite answer. And Lauren talked a lot about how modes on universal charms work, which is a slick design and was one of the smartest things that we did to save space in a book that needed more space than we had. But the other thing that modes do is present unique ways to change the way all charms work. And you can use modes because modes are they come automatically as long as you meet the requirements, or unless they say you have to buy them, which some of them do, and you're gonna see more purchasable modes in the companions. That was a place we future-proofed towards. But like consider the way Dragon Blooded use aura, where if they are in their aura, they get their elemental mode, and you can switch between them freely, giving them this cool like stance shifting type feel. Liminals have their nature modes, which let them shift between their abilities, and when you're in that specific aura or that specific nature, you have this additional rider. Spells use modes to make a universal spell become sorcery or necromancy, and you can always choose not to use a mode, but why would you? So it's not just the design space for this charm works a certain way for this Exalt. It's also this charm gets cooler when this Exalt uses it this way. And if you remember if any of you have backed the Exigence Indiegogo, which you should, go do it. It's awesome. These lovely people also worked on it too. and it will complement your essence games phenomenally. So that's my go back exigence pitch. You'll notice that the architects have a keyword called Metropolis, which is 100% going to become their Metropolis mode in essence. And I may have invented it for both of them and did that on purpose. Just saying.
And that's why having the team all work together is important, and that's why we have, like, in our developer Discord, we have a channel for all dev stuff, and so we can do things like coordinate between Essence and Exigence and Sidereals as they're still being worked on, because that's useful. And also with Essence, everything went by Eric and Vance too, to make sure that it was in line for kind of what they want to do for the future of the line. So also we had Ada Mori asked any advice on introducing Exalted to someone brand new to TTRPGs in general.
Oh, that's a big question. I've talked a lot. Elliott and Lauren, do you have any good advice for this? I know you're currently doing it, Elliott. So
I am. I've got a game where I have a whole lot of newbies, either to Exalted or still relatively new to Tatterpigs in general.
Tatterpigs.
I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to Tatterpig, and yes, I'm going to Tatterpig. I don't know that I have a great roadmap there, because it's such an individual thing depending on like what kind of touchstones that person has.
Mm-hmm.
So find those touchstones that are going to resonate with them about Exalted, about the kind of stories Exalted tells. Get them thinking, even before they like make a character, get them thinking about like what kind of character would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Get them to think about like one or two cool moments that they want to have, where they want to like kick someone off of a bridge, or lift an entire boat above their head, or whatever it might be, and let them know that they can actually have those moments, that those are things that can happen in play.
Mm-hmm.
But for introducing it Exalted overall, start small, start contained, like give them a very specific perspective. Don't necessarily let them loose to read all 10 Exalted types one after the other.
Yeah.
Because they will A, be overwhelmed, and B, get so much analysis paralysis. Like I had one player who went through 7 different character pitches before he settled on an infernal named Vasiago, which is amazing. But yeah, like give them some parameters first.
Yeah.
And let them play around in that space. And there's still going to be plenty of space for them.
Yeah, we've done some streams with like Vorpal Tales, for instance, when we were doing the Kickstarter. And one thing that I did was I just went to everybody and said, "What kind of character do you want to play?" And they came to me with what kind of like some aspects they wanted, things they wanted to do. And I said, "Cool, here's what you should look at," and gave them like 1 or 2 options. Like, oh, you want to play this thing? You want to be this kind of alchemical, probably. Oh, you want to be this thing? You either want to be this kind of lunar, or maybe this kind of Gatemian or Liminal. But, like, give them some parameters. Because that's just helpful in general. I feel like most people come to D&D, for instance, knowing Lord of the Rings, knowing fantasy, so they can, like, they kind of know all the archetypes of the basic classes, right? Because everyone knows what a, halfling ranger should be. Because, like, most people have at least seen Lord of the Rings stuff in passing, right? So it's kind of in the zeitgeist now. Whereas Exalted is in a kind of specific zeitgeist. It's like if you watch this genre of thing or read this genre of thing, it's really familiar to you. And if you don't watch or read those genres of things, then it's completely foreign. And that's kind of one of those things that you have to tell folks about. It's like everything's big and Exalted. That's a note that we give to our artists, even. like here's a picture of a Diclave. Please understand that when we say big sword, we mean big sword. Like, big sword. And creation is huge, and your deeds are huge, and you're important, and that's a really cool story to tell. and it's just not one that everybody is, familiar with, aside from maybe on a mythical level. So,
Lauren, did you have any good advice for onboarding new people?
I think kind of bouncing off what you all have already said too is you don't have to know everything all at once, because trying to go into the history of creation is a little bit overwhelming, and especially because especially when you're someone who's played it for a long time, you're like, oh, and then this thing happened over here, and then this thing happened over here. Nobody needs to know all of that.
People need to know about the Great Contagion. Like,
No.
That's not important when you start playing a game of Exalted. They need to know that they're superheroes in this world.
Exactly. And I think bouncing off of not just what type of characters do you want to play, but also what kind of game do you want to play, Exalted lends itself really well to different genres. So if you want to play like cosmic survival horror, you've got the North. If you want to do fantasy wandering hero adventurers, you've got the Scavenger Lands. If you want to do swashbuckling adventures at sea, you've got the West. Like, you can tailor your game to the type that people want to play, and if they're used to playing a certain another property, Exalted can fit that too. So you can sort of start them there and then expand out and slowly introduce other elements of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't tell your players that you don't expect them to learn the entire history of the realm before you go play in the realm, right?
That's what your NPCs are for and your encounters are for, is to sort of drip that information to them.
Yeah, exactly. Or like if they need a specific piece of information, just give it to them in the moment, Like, oh, by the way, the Scarlet Number has been missing for 5 years, just so you know.
Yeah.
That's mildly important here, but that's all you just say.
But we need to know about Regara banking practices.
No, we truly don't. We truly
This
don't.
is desperately important to the beginner.
The WC was asked if we could see higher circle spells in Companion, and I do believe we have some higher circle spells.
Yep, you will be seeing more spells of the third circle, both for sorcery and necromancy.
Yeah.
I think we may actually be seeing some brand new necromancy spells. We did give direction to our author writing that section that, like, kind of previous edition necromancy was a little boring. And so if you read through those spells and they're like, all of these suck, go ahead and make up some new ones. Or be inspired by an old one and give it a facelift. So get excited for that, because there's going to be some fresh content in the necromancy section. I also saw someone ask about martial arts.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up next.
Okay, cool. Would you like the list of all the martial arts? Because that's not going to change.
I think that on this Essence panel, you should list the martial arts.
Okay. All right. So for the non-sidereal martial arts, we're going to bring you a conversion of Single Point Shining into the Void, Even Blade, Golden Janissary, Violet Beer of Sorrows, White Veil, Celestial Monkey, Hungry Ghost, Steel Devil, Black Claw, Thousand Wounds Gear, Dreaming Pearl Courtesan, First Pulse, and Devil Prince Sword Style.
And for the SMAs?
And for the SMAs, Border of Kaleidoscopic Logic, Obsidian Shards of Infinity, for all the people out there who were like, are you going to do Obsidian Shards? Yes, we are. Charcoal March of the Spiders, my favorite, I call dibs. Citrine Poxes of Contagion, Scarlet Patterns of the Battlefield, Sapphire Veil of Passion, and Quicksilver Hand of Dreams. And that's it.
That's exciting.
That's the whole list.
That's a lot of martial arts.
I remember way back at the very start, we were all like blathering excitedly about things that could eventually get adapted into Essence. And I just remember, Dixie, you had this wonderful moment of being like, what's a Dreaming Pearl Courtesan?
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't have to. That's what the gazelle carp is for.
I don't like it. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, no, there. I mean, I have lots of quibbles with old school Exalted naming conventions. I'm like, what is this? Why is this a thing? But it's okay. It's all good. But yeah, so we have a lot of really awesome things coming up for that. Okay, there was a joke I didn't get. I'm sorry I didn't get a joke, chat. Calm down. Remember, I'm a newbie to Exalted. I don't know all the fan-based jokes.
You also don't have to go into the game knowing all the fan base jokes.
It's true. It's true. Like, I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's like I always, think of that XKCD comic that a lot of folks reference, that you're one of today's lucky 10,000, when people don't know things. And so it's like, you don't know a thing, but that's okay, because now you're gonna learn a thing, and it's gonna be cool, and you're gonna have more knowledge. And that makes me happy. We do have about 15 minutes more, a little less than. So if anybody has... Oh, God, Ray just joined the chat. Okay, well, if anybody has any
Ray
questions...
has entered the chat.
Hi, Nemesis.
Chaos.
Let me know. Twitch finally let Ray log in, and they're about to make it everyone else's problem. Good, great. Well, good thing we only have 14 minutes left in here. So...
All right. Well, now that it's
14 minutes is a lot longer.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for chaos.
I know. We had 46 minutes without Ray.
Ray, give us your best, worst questions, please.
What is the sexiest Exalt, and why is it Lunars? Well, a Lunar can be whoever you want, so...
Respectfully disagree. The sexiest Exalts are definitely Infernals, thanks.
I'm going to go way off script and say that the sexiest Exalts are actually the Gatimians.
Oh, explain yourself.
I mean, better world proposition.
Okay, fair. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to go even more off script and say the sexiest Exalts are the Sovereigns, because I had crushes on all the glam rock boys when I was a child.
I mean, I know this isn't Essence, but there is an illustration for an Abyssal in Adversaries coming up that I think is just gonna win. It's our
Okay.
Byronic Death Knight. Yeah, she's fantastic. So,
I mean, really every Exalt type is the sexiest Exalt type. Exalts are sexy. What are you going to do about it? They got magic powers.
Yeah, let's see. There's a question about advice on making our own artifacts.
I have found... So, I'm going to say this as a person who, like I said, is not a mechanics or homebrew person. I have found that taking stuff from the core and just adapting it has been the easiest way for me to make artifacts. Now, if you want something that's totally not related to anything in the core, obviously, there's probably different advice that Monica can give you. But for me, it's like... Oh, my friend wants, like swords that do a thing, and the book has punch fists that do a thing, so I'll just turn them into swords, and then change the fire thing to a stone thing. And, like, that's fairly simple, which I like. Or if you want to, like, I think I adapted the silk armor that's in the core, by making it a higher artifact level, but just adding some more stuff to it, which... If I'm doing that, I'm usually gonna run it by Monica, be like, "How do you feel about this effect?" And usually she's like, "Oh, that's fine. That works." Or she's like, "You're actually not thinking big enough," because that's the biggest thing for me with doing Exalted, is that coming from a long line of more personal horror and down to earth and fantasy games, I tend to be like, I'll give it a +1 because it's like a big deal in D&D. And Monica's like, what if it had these 4 effects that were all really good? And I'm like, is that too much? Monica's like, no, it's Exalted. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, what about if you're designing something completely from scratch, Monica?
That's a harder question to answer. But
Yes.
So basically, the design of an artifact comes in 2 parts. You have its inherent property, and you have its evocations. And I will just tell you what I told the new authors who were working on Pillars about this. I did a whole teaching everyone how to write for Essence thing, which one of our authors delightfully named Charm School. I hosted Charm School. And so let me give you the lesson from Charm School. So you have your 2 things. You have your inherent property, you have your evocations, and it's up to you where you want that power to be. So if you want an artifact like, we'll use Flying Silver Dream, which was in the Essence core as an example. Flying Silver Dream's power is all in its inherent property. It is a living weapon. It flies around. It helps you out. It's an artifact and a buddy, right? And so all of that is just what it does. That doesn't cost you anything. That's just right there. So if you want to do an artifact that's like that, you're going to front load what it can do into its inherent property. And I can't tell you whether or what the decision is that is there for you, you have to kind of figure that one out on your own, which is also what I told my authors. They weren't happy with that. I'm sure you're not either, but that's the answer. And then if you're going to front load into the inherent property, then you don't have to put as much into the evocations. So you might only write one in that case. If you have a weaker inherent property, because you really are interested in unlocking the evocations and having new charms to buy from your weapon, then you're going to put your powers there. And then you might want to write 2, 3, 4. Even though we only gave like 2 or 3 for an example, you can write as many evocations as you want. That's not a hard limit. That was the book is only so big limit.
Right.
Yeah. So if you think it's really cool to like have charms that come from your weapon, or if you're an alchemical and you want to just keep unlocking them as an exalt milestone because they're allowed to do that, come up with more of your own. And then evocations are a matter of simply following charm design. Otherwise, they follow all the same rules as charms. We gave you a little bit of direction for how to do that in the appendix in the main book. And if you just kind of read through the rest of the charms, you can really get a good sense of how to design them, I think anyway. So that's really how it is. You either choose where you want to put your power, either in the inherent property and then less evocations, or less in the inherent property and more in the evocation.
Yeah. Also, I mean, going through the charms and picking the charm that's closest to what you want the evocation to do, and then adapting that is far easier than trying to write it yourself. So, you know, like we were saying, if you want a flame piece that shoots whatever random thing, look at Glorious Exalted Bolt, because that's essentially the charm you're trying to put on the flame piece. And look at some of the defense charms if you're trying to make armor, etc., etc. Because that's going to be your best bet for figuring it out, is to take a charm and just like tweak it rather than try to write it all from scratch.
Yeah, that's great advice, for sure.
Let's see. We have a couple more questions. So Ray asked a serious question, which is, if you had 1,000 more words for anything you wanted to include in Essence, what would you write?
I'm gonna turn that over to my co-host, because I could talk about that all day.
Elliott, what would you put in Essence? What sin would you visit upon the people?
Oh God, that's a terrible question. Also, Ray's first question was whether or not she could fire me.
No.
To which I would say, hey Ray, I've got a wonderful manuscript that could use some development if you would like to take that on. But no, gosh, I mean, right now my answer would be demons, because I'm in the thick of it, and there's so many wonderful demons. I'm remembering the love that I had for Games of Divinity and the way that they wrote just so evocatively. Beyond that, I'm always here for more sorcery. Always here for more sorcery. Give me more sorcery. So 1,000 more words of sorcery. Yeah, that's where I'm going. That's on my wish list.
Laura, do you have anything?
I'm a fan of setting stuff, so I think Exalted just has so many cool places, not only ones that are already mentioned, but just getting to make up new ones, going into weird places in the wild, or, you know, strange locations that are unexplored. I think that, as you said earlier, creation is very, very big.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of places to explore in it, and we can just keep making up cool places to go.
Yeah, definitely. I would say either I'm a fan of necromancy. Probably also more fair folk stuff, I think I would throw in there. Or just more charms, because, you know, I like charms. Who doesn't want to take charms? Like, I mean, we had to ask Monica when we were making our characters for the podcast actual play, like, can we have 6 charms instead of 5 at character creation? Because all of us have 1 extra charm we like to take. And Monica was really nice and let that happen. But yeah, that's where I would be. But, like, honestly, Fairfolk in the Wild, there's just so much weird shit in there that we could spend books and books and books covering it and never cover all of it. So anytime that I can give more word count to the weirdness that is the wild, I'm always happy to. Now Monica's gotten to think while the rest of us answered.
Oh, sure. I mean, like, I would take 1,000 words on every section. Just give me 1,000 more words in each chapter. Like, give me 1,000 more words of setting, 1,000 more words of room to add more anima effects or things like that. Give me 1,000 more words of charms for each type, like 1,000 more universals, 1,000 more of each exalt type. My answer would have been like not just 1,000 words period, 1,000 words for each section. There was so much more we could have put in, and I can't narrow that down to one thing.
And
it's 20 pounds of Exalted in a 5-pound bag, y'all.
Well, do keep in mind that once the core book comes out, it will unlock on Storyteller's Vault. So if people want to create extra content for Exalted Essence, they are more than welcome to once the core book is out. And that's a thing that I'm sure we will see.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think
my
a lot of people have
Exigence
already
adventure is already ready.
Somebody did ask if we could get a copy of the lecture notes from Charm School. I'm not sure you had notes. I think you just talked.
I did indeed take notes, but they are not in like a readable format for public consumption. They're internal notes, which are not to be released. However, on the subject of the Storyteller Vault, I am strongly considering writing a like design guide / storyteller guide for Essence after it comes out. The gospel according to Monica, I guess.
Rose Bailey did that for Vampire the Requiem, and it was actually really, really well received. So if you ever want to write a little like Monica's Guide to Writing Charms, like that's something that I'm sure fans would love.
It's on my to-do list. So but I also am very bad at writing things on my own. So if you're like, where's the charm guide, Monica? And you're like, eaten by the ADHD demon, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, it's been a fun weekend because you can't take Adderall when you're also taking Dayquil. You're not supposed to. So I'm just off my Adderall and on the Dayquil. It's great. It's a great weekend. We have a couple minutes left. So NFL asked, what is your favorite illustration in all the Exalted books? Is it... And why is it Doot Wolf or Trauma Bear, right? Like, we got all these great meme illustrations at this point. But to be honest, I love anything that Yi Young Lee does. I think that his work is fantastic. I also do actually have a print of the Priscilla Kim piece of the Scarlet Empress laying her sword on. Yeah. So I've got, like, that is the only Exalted piece I've got an actual print of in my house. Which means I obviously like it a lot. But really, like, I just love most of our art. I think our art's really good. I love the scary lady in Lunars with the anglerfish mouth. Like, that one makes me happy. I love the lady in the woods with the... I don't know, like, all the art is good. I like our art.
You asked me... The question of like what's your favorite Exalted art piece caused a Stack Overflow in my brain.
Yeah,
I had to dream. I was like, okay, but 3 editions worth of really good art.
Yeah.
And the only thing that my shitbird brain would generate was that one picture of Sad Ivory where she's naked and spying on the Lunars.
Now, I did also say this in the Exalted panel, is that I also obviously love Mel Udon's Samada for 100 Devils. Now, these are all mainline Exalted, and this is the Essence panel, so I will keep it to Essence for a second and say that I love my Sidereal Splat, because I wrote the art note for her. She has a Jade and Star Metal prosthetic leg that makes me very, very happy, and she is a Chosen of Journeys, because I liked that. I also obviously love Abyssal Wheelchair, because that made me super happy, because it's just like... What is this terrifying wrought iron battle throne that you're sitting in? You know, it's freaking great. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Essence so good.
I also think my favorite Essence piece so far is only one that we've seen previewed in behind the scenes, and I'm really, really excited to see it finished. And that I'm just gonna tap my nose at the audience and let Dixie wonder which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I have no idea
we're not gonna talk about it on air, but there's a really, really cool one that I'm really excited for everyone to see.
Yeah, I just sent some batches to y'all recently, so
yeah, I'll reveal my answer once we're off air.
Oh.
Elliott and Lauren, what about you?
I mean, I feel like Dixie hit a lot of my choices because the one with the Scarlet Empress, that is my favorite from probably mainline 3rd edition.
Yeah.
The Essence Sidereal is probably one of my favorite designs for just a character.
I was proud of her.
So elegant.
Yeah.
There's some wonderful art coming up for Exigence that I think if we did the one I'm thinking of, and I don't think it's ready yet, but what's going to be the chapter illustration for the appendix is going to be very fun.
We have like so much upcoming art that we've seen
Mhm.
sketches of, so it's like we still have sketches. I also love the alchemical from Essence, which Monica designed, because those art notes were really like collaborative. Like we all picked different things and talked about them. So there are a couple that I'm like, that's my baby, and then there's some that it's like that's Monica's baby, and like we just we had fun with them. What about you, Lauren? What do you love?
I'm excited now that you've teased the illustration for the opening Essence fiction. I'm excited to see that. I was just looking, and there's an illustration toward the end of Lunars, which is the signature circle, kind of hanging out by a fire. You've got little Saze in her fox form, or fennec fox form, and it's just. I loved writing those characters. Saze might be my favorite of the signatures, but I don't know because some of the sidereal's signatures are pretty cool. And I left an art note suggestion at the
Oh
end
yeah.
during the fiction for Elliott and Vance, and my fingers are crossed that it happens because I'm like, yes, do this. So,
Well,
but
all right, so we are at time. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your questions. Let's do a little round of where people can find you. We'll start with Lauren.
hi, I am on Twitter as at Falconess, which I think is under my name
Yep,
here.
we all
Woohoo!
got nameplates.
I have my Zoom overlay over the Twitch, where I will be talking about writing and games and stuff like that. And can I plug a non-exalted thing
You can plug
that got
whatever
announced
you
this
want.
weekend?
You're fantastic.
I am the developer for Trinity Continuum Aegis, and I'm super excited
Yay!
about that. And so some of the writers have announced that they're on it, and I've been retweeting them. So you should also go follow them because it's an awesome team. And as more people say, "Hey, I'm doing this," I will also retweet them.
Mm-hmm. Elliott, what about you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Elliott M. Freeman, 2 L's, 2 T's. Otherwise, you're just not going to get to me. I am on the official Onyx Path Discord, but I'm also a lot of time on the Exalted fan cord.
Yeah.
Just teasing and shit posting and redacting.
Redacted.
They thought they would finally be rid of my evil redactions once Exigence was underway and being released, but no, sidereals are just going to be redacted now, and they're even more redactable.
Yeah, I know they're quite redactable.
Yep. And I guess my plug is just come join the Exigence Indiegogo if you haven't gotten a chance to do it yet.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be a fabulous book. I'm really proud of all the work that everyone did to make it as interesting and as awesome as it's going to be. And if we do not get to the stretch goal where I get to write something about the Fox Binder, I will weep blood.
Oh God, that's a threat.
No, it's a promise.
Monica?
Yeah,
a
obviously
plea.
you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Zenith Sun. I also am making a foray back to Tumblr. You can find me there. I am Dice-Wizard. I don't post very much, but I do reblog a lot of stuff. I also am the host of Bonus Experience alongside Ray, who is in the audience trolling all of you right now, where we both talk about game design in an informative and funny way. So if you like that and like my voice, you're really going to like Bonus Experience.
Mm-hmm.
I also team up with Chaz, who is the co-developer on Pillars, but couldn't be here today. And is also one of our writers alongside long-term fan Terry Robinson, and the three of us do an Exalted explainer called Systematic Understanding of Everything. So if you are trying to get new people into it, it's much easier to send them links to Systematic Understanding of Everything than it is to get them to read a dozen books.
Yep.
So there's that, and we also do a little bit of rules rundown for both 3rd edition and Essence, so no matter what version of Exalted you're interested in, we have stuff for you. That's where you can find me. Listen to my beautiful voice. I'm also hang out on the official OPP Discord. I also hang out on the fan cord, and also hang out on the Bonus Experience Discord. So if you're looking for me, there's places to find me.
I just got someone trying to fish me.
Oh yeah.
Like while we're finishing this up, I'm like no, I'm not gonna click on
we've been trying to reach
link.
you about your extended warranty.
It was like a new payment was added to your bill pay. Click on this sketch ass link, and I'm like no. You can find me at Dixie Cochran pretty much everywhere. Onyx Path, Discord, Fancord, Twitter, everything else. And thank you all again for being here. This was fantastic. Definitely check out the Exigence Indiegogo. It's going really well. I want it to keep going well. You can still get Essence on BackerKit, like I said. So if you missed the Kickstarter, you can still go pick up a deluxe if you want. And then we are doing all the stuff on Exigent. So if you want to go back for PDF and then get a POD, if you want to get the deluxe version, it's going to be fun. I'm very excited about this book. So thank you all for tuning in, and have a wonderful day. I'm not sure what the next thing is, but because I'm not on it. But there is a panel coming up in half an hour. So stick around. Bye.